Just our being together here is such grace, so much blessing for one birth. Just as last evening, Hari described how, as Larry, with a sore leg from a fall during a morning ritual under LSD, and despite the subway ride, and despite the fact that nobody would join him to go, he still found himself going to hear Swami Satchidananda in New York City, and he said he was already working on me, that he could overcome my tamasic nature to get me to go through all that to get to him. You certainly cannot believe any less of this moment, that forces are afoot in every one of our lives that brings us here. It is not by chance that we happen to meet. And it's interesting to examine that chance occurrence, because it's certainly easy at the moment when it's all beautiful to say, what grace, what a blessing. Certainly the Guru is smiling upon me to have allowed me to have satsang again. The reason it's worth examining is to see if the concept of some overriding plan can become such a dominant theme in our consciousness that when the drama changes, when the melodrama gets heavy, when you've just fallen from the tree, you can equally say, what grace. Oh, thank you. Swami Ramdas is reported to have said, when he had been thrown out of a temple one night and had to sleep by the riverbank where the mosquitoes were particularly fierce, and thus he couldn't sleep at all, he kept saying, oh, thank you, Ram, for coming in the form of mosquitoes to keep me awake so I could remember you. In the Ramayana, there are two places in the Tulsidas version where Ram makes it very clear that unless one honors Shiva, one cannot come to Ram. Now, Ram is an incarnation of Vishnu, generally connected with the preserving and maintaining and very loving and supportive forces in the world. Shiva, on the other hand, is often associated with the chaotic or destructive or unpredictable, or what are often called the malevolent forces in the world. And Ram says, unless you honor Shiva, you cannot come to me. There's a temple right at the very tip of India called Rameshwaram. It's where Ram did puja to Shiva before going across to Ceylon, to Sri Lanka, to rescue Sita, his wife. It's interesting to reflect on what does it mean to honor Shiva. It's so easy when you get high in a situation, whether it's satsang or whatever, meditation, and you say, oh, I feel the presence. I'm being given grace. But what about when you're despairing and you don't feel the presence? You think that's any less grace? Last night, Hari said one thing which I guess I disagree with the sort of attitude that he reflected. He said he was doing karma yoga a lot because he guessed he was just too gross to do any other form of yoga. Now, I must say that I shared that opinion about karma yoga. When I went to India last time in 1970, I went in order to meditate, in order to get holy. I had been lecturing and teaching in America and doing whatever my hypocritical poor light would allow. And my own hypocrisy overwhelmed me, and it drove me back to the feet of my guru. I was just drunk for satsang. I was hooked. I needed to get back to my connection. And my plan was to check in with him, get his blessing, and then go to a cave, which he would bless me to do. This was my mind, okay? And there I would sit with his blessing, and I would meet Babaji, and I would meet Buddha, and I would meet Christ, and I would hang out with the astral team, and they would give me all the secrets. And maybe I'd go north to the edge of Tibet, and I would get some deep teachings from the Tibetans. And I would take deep meditation practices on various visualization exercises. I might even be walled into a building for 3 years, 3 months, 3 days, 3 hours, 3 minutes, and 3 seconds. And I thought, when I come back to America next time, boy, it's going to be different. I'm not going to be just a phony yogi. I'll be really the real thing. And I went to, with the group that was together at that time, I went to Bodh Gaya, where Buddha got enlightened. Seemed like a good place to start, because I couldn't find my guru, because he was, as he is wont to do, so we all enrolled in these courses, these 10-day courses, and we took a series of them. And it was very intense and very austere. And we learned how to cheat and cut corners, but it still was pretty fierce. And there was no doubt that some headway was made in that meditation. But after about 4 of the courses, I could see that the slippage was increasing considerably. And that the thing that was missing was that my heart was very dry in that situation. I couldn't open my heart. And just at that time, I had been invited to Shivaratri with Swami Muktananda in Delhi, and I thought, wow, a good Shiva festival, that'll really get me moving again. But I didn't really want to just walk out on the meditation because I felt that's kind of a cop-out. I mean, here I came to meditate and I'm walking out, to go dance and sing, like any sloppy bhakti would do. So I entered into an arrangement with the most essence meditation teacher that during the monsoon, I found out where he would be up in the mountains, and we made a survey. We went up there in advance, and we found another house that would hold 3 people, and we rented and had to fix up the house, put a new roof on, new water system, got the house all ready. And I arranged that when he went off for the summer, for the summer monsoon, 3 of us would go and we would be with him, 4 of us, 3 or 4 of us. And we would just get all this intense training in meditation. And I thought, well, as long as I've organized it and prepared for it, now I can go dance and sing because I can do my sort of sloppy stuff because I'm really going to do the work later. Well, on the way to Shivratri, it turned out that we met Maharaji, my guru. And in my puffed up pride, I said to him, like a good little boy reporting his work, I said, I've arranged for this teacher and this house, and I'm going to meditate. And I told him this whole story with a question mark at the end, like, aren't I good? Or isn't that wonderful? Or isn't this just what you want? And his answer was, if you desire it. Well, that left me hanging. Because what he was saying is, you want an ego trip? Go ego trip. Now, I couldn't understand that. What self-respecting guru would say that meditation was ego tripping? I mean, that seemed like the height of profanity, yogic profanity. So I thought, well, he's just a silly old man, and he doesn't really understand. And maybe he's saying something much more profound that I'll only understand later after I've meditated. So I'm going to do it anyway. I said, humbly. So when the time arrived, I went up there, and I was so happy to get to this place because up until then, everywhere I'd gone, there were always Westerners. And it turned out I was always hanging around Westerners and after all, you don't go to India to hang out with Western consciousness. And I was always hanging around Westerners who were looking to me for something or other, which seemed absurd. I mean, they come to the well to drink, and then they're looking to polluted water they brought from the city, I mean, it's so bizarre, But there's a certain culture shock in India, and it's nice to have something to cling to, and I was sort of it. So I went to the mountains, and I was so happy I was finally away from all of them. Right? And that draggy having to be with them and answer and deal with the stuff all day. And I put away all the musical instruments and all the bhakti schmaltz, and I was going to settle down for serious business that was going to bring me to God. You got the set of the mind? Well, when I arrived there, within about 2 or 3 days, Westerners, other than the 3 people that had been invited, started to trickle in. First 3, then 5, then 8, then 11, until there were about 20 others. And they all said, I said, what are you doing here? Because I thought we were hiding out and we had kept it really secret. And they all said, well, Maharaji sent us. he said, go be with Ram Dass. So we took over a hotel in the town. But I stayed up in the house with a group up there, and I wouldn't have anything to do with the people down there. I said, look, if you're in the town, that's up to you, but I'll come down and visit every week, but that's all. I don't want anything to do with any of you. I'm here for serious business. Well, then, another week went by, and the teacher didn't show up. And a letter comes from him saying, unfortunately, due to circumstances beyond my control, I will not be able to come this summer. And now I could see whose big hand was behind that. I mean, there wasn't any doubt about that. So we arranged to take over the Gandhi ashram in the town. We all moved into the ashram, and we ended up having an ashram for the summer. We all disciplined ourselves. We read the Ramayana and fasted and meditated and lived in silence. We had a very profound, good summer together. Very beautiful, holy place. Okay, now the next component in that training program, that is an answer to Hari's point last night, was when I got to India this last time, when I was with my guru, he said, who do you want to see when you're in India? And I said, well, I'd like to see Anandamayi Ma, because to see the mother, to have the darshan of the mother, wow. He says, Acha, that's good. Who else? I said, I don't want to see anybody else, just you. So he said to me, see Lama Govinda. I said, Lama Govinda? I said, I've already seen Lama Govinda. I said, he's a very nice man, he's a good German scholar, and he's a wonderful Lama, and that's lovely, and he's written some incredibly good books. But you know, and he says, see Lama Govinda. So that was that. So I kept stalling. And then I heard that he was going to be leaving for Dallas. So Krishna Das, who's going to be playing the drums with me this afternoon, and Annapurna and I went over to visit Lama Govinda. Just to put a little flesh on the bones, just to give you a little feeling for the little divine play in the whole dance. Let me tell you the story in the rich way, rather than the bare bones part. Because the means and the ends are one, by the way, so there's no conclusion in anything I say. It's just like hamburger, it just keeps coming out. We had included a picture of my guru and Lama Govinda in the Be Here Now production. And in the picture was also Li Gautami, Lama Govinda's Shakti, his wife. And she had taken the picture on an automatic camera, and we had cut her off in the one we had used in the book. And since we were not acknowledging anybody's contributions, we didn't acknowledge that she had taken the picture. And since all her pictures had stamped on the back of them, taken by Li Gautami, we knew she might have a slight investment in this matter, and I expected to get a little flack from her about this when I should see her. Now, there was a little additional matter that Lama Govinda had written a letter to an editor of Newsweek in Chicago who had photostated it and sent it on to me, in which he said, these Westerners go to India and they take the first guru that comes along. They're so hot to get a guru. Take Dick Alpert. he went and he got hooked up with his second-rate mind reader. Right? Okay. So now I knew that, see. So I figured if Ligatami gives me any trouble about the picture, I will discuss second-rate mind readers, but otherwise I won't do it, see. I mean, I'm not going to just start out with, I just have a little thing in restore in case. Yogic love, it's just the social dance, So the time came for taking pictures, which it does at most of Lama Govinda's scenes, and I said, well, I'll stay inside, we'll stay inside, you go ahead. And Ligatami says, no, you've got to be in the picture too, I'm going to get back at you for, uh-oh, she just did it. So as we were standing posing for the picture, Lama Govinda and I, with some other people, I turned to him and I said, do you really think he's a second-rate mind reader? That's all, I just looked right at him. Well, he went through just long enough to go through the chain to realize that he had just been had. And he lit up, and we looked at each other with total love. We had just broken through all the formalities, And from then on, our relationship was totally joyful. So that evening, the five of us sat together after the other guests had left, and his mind was beautiful. It was like an exquisite crystal, like a beautiful jewel, very clear mind. Now, he represented to me the kind of meditative jnana yoga, the intellect and meditation aspects of yoga, which to me have always been the manly, tough forms of yoga, see, as opposed to the bhakti and karma things, which are what you do if you can't do anything else, see, if your mind's too gross to do anything else. So I said to him, Lama Govinda, what is it you want me to do? Do you want me to go and to study, do visualizations? What is it you'd like now? What kind of... Maharaji sent me to you. He must have sent me to you for teaching. I now take you as my teacher. Tell me what to do next. I said, I can go on with my Southern Buddhist meditation or my go into Northern Buddhism. I've been interested in the Nyingmapa, and I can go on with my Padmasambhava mantra, or what do you suggest? I sat as a seeker. And he said, no, you don't understand at all. He said, I've looked at your book and all that. He said, your path is the path of the heart. And he said, your heart is opening. It's all happening to you. You don't have to do anything. Now, he said that, and I wouldn't hear it, see. I said, oh, I know all that, but tell me, what should I do, see? Because you certainly couldn't assume you don't do anything, And he says, no, you don't understand. He said, you're doing your path already. So, now, coming from him... See, I mean, it's one thing if a bhakti says to you, go be bhakti. You say, sure, he's protecting his own investment. But when Lama Govinda, he's got to go against everything he ever talks about, roughly, to tell me to do that, when I've asked him for teaching. So in a way, it was incredible that Maharaji would send me to Lama Govinda to get him to tell me that my yoga, see, was bhakti. That was part of it, bhakti yoga. So I began to reassess, bhakti yoga. It took on a new dimension for me now. I mean, it was going to be respectable. I wanted to call it. So later when I was sitting with Maharaji, I would say to him things like, Maharaji, how do you awaken Kundalini? I mean, just a question in the passing of the day, passing. And he'd say, feed everybody. Feed everybody. I mean, I'm ready for pranayam and bastrika, alam balom. Feed everybody. Maharaji, how do I get finished? Love everyone. And all he kept instructing me was, and all of us, was love, serve, remember. Love, serve, remember. Now, I couldn't help but break up over the cosmic joke that I should go to India, to the deep, dark, mysterious East, to learn the secrets that will bring man to final realization, to bring them back home to the primitive tribes in the outer lands, right? And I come back bearing the gift of 3 words, love, serve, and remember, which have already been hanging around here for years, as I seem to recall Christ reminding us about. And in the 2 years I was in India, I think in total, there were 14 days when I was not surrounded with Westerners, doing exactly the same thing I do in the United States. So what I was forced to recognize was, I was forced to do what's called a figure ground reversal. Because what I saw hanging out and talking about God with people as was what you do until you do the real thing. And now I had to flip it over and see that maybe that was the real thing, and all the other things were support systems. Now, faced with the possibility that the rest of this incarnation, or at least at this time, my Dharma was to do karma yoga and bhakti yoga, I started to examine the nature of these yogas a little more carefully, since I was stuck with them, apparently. And I must say, I shared that little tone of that quality in the way Hari put that, although I'm not attributing to him that he shares that opinion, but the tone that I got from the way he said it, that you're so gross, you just do karma yoga and bhakti yoga. It's sort of, we used to think of there are gentle paths, like going to church on Sunday is a very gentle path. Then there are steep paths like Zen Buddhism, where you just sit and think of nothing. And most people can't stand that because that's too steep. They need a support system like a god or something or a church or a ritual to cling to. And there are these different steepnesses of path. And karma yoga has always been connected with doing good, gray ladies serving in hospitals, and, sort of a nice, gentle way to come to God over the next 10,000 incarnations. So a deeper study of the Bhagavad Gita, which of course is the text for karma yoga, among other yoga. And I entered full steam into karma yoga. I figured, well, if it's my yoga, then I'll do it. Now, when I came back to America in '72, I was living not in time. I was going to live like my guru lives. He's just somewhere until he isn't there anymore, and then he goes somewhere else. And you never know when he'll be there or when he won't. I figured I'll live outside of time, because time was really scaring me about the West. Schedules, and you're going to lecture, like you're going to lecture Thursday night at 8, like Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. And many hundreds of people are going to be expecting your consciousness to get them off at 9 o'clock on Saturday. So everything you did Friday night, everything you did Thursday, Friday, if you had a lustful thought on Wednesday, that was going to affect Saturday morning. So you had to watch it, and you had to get so programmed. And if you had 2 a week, it wiped out the whole week. You had to just sort of sit in like in a straitjacket to just stay together enough. And I was like, time was my enemy. I was always like afraid to let go. So I thought, look, I'm not going to live in time. I'm just going to live. I'll just be where I am. And people would call me from New York to New Hampshire, and they'd say, will you be there tomorrow afternoon? I want to come see you. Meaning, will you be holy tomorrow afternoon at 2? I'd say, I don't know. They'd say, well, what do you mean you don't know? I'd say, well, I don't know where I'll be tomorrow afternoon at 2. Meaning, not only I don't know where I'll be geographically, but I don't know where I'll be in terms of my consciousness, because my consciousness, unlike Swamiji's consciousness, is not nice and even and smooth and together. I'll tell you, I'm not going to be the only one to do karma yoga this morning. I'll tell you that right now. My mind is a little bit like a roller coaster, and it's not any roller coaster that you ride the same route each time. Each time it's a different route, so you can't tell if you felt you get really it's all pouring through you, and everybody looks at you and they see the highest light, and you say, oh boy, all I got to do is keep cool, and this is the way it's going to be, and I can just be the transmitter. And so you make a plan for tomorrow at 3. Tomorrow at 3 comes, and somebody drives up the driveway, and you think, oh God, do I have to see them? Oh God. I want to see Perry Mason on television. I've got to see these people. Now, I don't want to see Perry Mason, but I do want to see Perry Mason, see? Because I want to see Perry Mason, I hate these people driving up the driveway. And I don't want to hate them because I'm a holy man. I want to love them, but I hate them. Okay? So I thought, okay, I'm going to change all that. I'm only going to be holy when I feel holy, right? People come and I don't feel like seeing them, I'll say, go away. Or I'll just disappear. Or whatever. I just won't be holy unless I feel like being holy. And when I'm holy, I'll be really holy. Because I was tired of being a phony holy man. Because if they've driven from Ohio, see? And they come to see Ram Dass. And they walk in, and you wait the last minute, turn off the television set, and you rush up. And you light an incense and candle, and you sit down. And they come in and you say, welcome. Well, that kind of hypocrisy, you can only live with yourself so long. I mean, it's just too heavy. It's just too ugly. It's just too horrible. So, and my guru had kept saying to me, tell the truth. Tell the truth, Ram Dass. He kept catching me not telling the truth. That was the problem. Really little things, I'll just give you a little quick example. I've mentioned this in lectures in the past. But once I won't tell the whole story, just a little part of it. A judge, a high Supreme Court official from Uttar Pradesh came to have Maharaji's darshan. And we were sitting on the outer rim, the Westerners, and the Indians were in close, and which alternated from day to day. And Maharaji gave this high court official a tremendous buildup about what an important man I was in America, which he had never done, and I never even thought that it was remotely relevant to anything he and I did together. He said, ex-professor, big university, and he just full of lies, incredible stuff. And he snowed the official, Finally, the official, with great awe, really, because turned around and he said, well, I'm honored to meet you. See? And I said, well, how do you do? He says, perhaps you'd like to visit the High Court. Now, in truth, I had no desire whatsoever to visit the High Court. I come from a family of lawyers. I've been in courts, and I didn't go to India for that particular trip. So I said to him, well, that would be very nice. So he said, well, tomorrow at 10? So I thought, uh-oh. So I said, well, you'll have to ask my guru, figuring he'll get me off the hook. So he says, Maharaji, can Ram Dass visit the High Court tomorrow at 10? And Maharaji says, if he says it'll be very nice, it'll be very nice. He'll come at 10. So always pointing like this, like, watch it, baby. I tell the truth. Just little ones, little social, those little white ones, you know, those don't hurt anybody, you know. There was a woman with him one day, and he came up and he said, do you remember her? And I said, oh, yes, and I didn't. And he said, yes, she's Dada's sister-in-law. And Dada's from Allahabad. So I said, oh, yes, we met in Allahabad. She says, no, we met right here. I said, oh. Maharaji went like that. It's just these little ones he was always getting me at. You know, it's like, tell the truth, babe. Come on, tell the truth. Truth gets you high. Tell the truth. So I thought when I came back to America, I'll just be straight. If I'm not feeling high, I won't make believe, you know. And I was trying to get very, very straight, okay? So it came, I sort of floated around the country just being wherever I was, and when I felt really together and like it was clear and I was calm and centered and loving and had something to offer, I was with people and it was beautiful, and I could feel Guru's grace coming through on people, and then when I wasn't, I just went off and, you know, read and studied. Then I decided, I had just done 4 or 5 lectures with Allen Ginsberg as benefits for Trungpa Rinpoche, and I decided those were in time. Those were the first things I had done in time. And then I thought I'd go into a retreat for a month. So I rented a cabin in Tucson, Arizona, in the mountains south of it, which had a kitchen, refrigerator, stove, beds. It was a bird estuary, so there were lots of bird lovers. Those were the only people there. Me and bird lovers, so I was not relevant in their universe. So it was a certain kind of privacy, even though there were other cabins. And I walked into this place and found, to my dismay, that the one other thing that the cabin had was a television set. Now, I had gone in to do a prayer. I was going to do a prayer for 30 days. Which was the Sutra of the Third Chinese Patriarch of Zen, which is just a little tiny booklet, and I was just going to work with that for 30 days. But I spent the first 8 days, roughly 12 hours a day, looking at television. Now, after I looked at television for the first day, see, I was so horrified that I might spend the next 29 doing it, that I took a screwdriver out of my car and I unwired the television set. And I put it in the closet. And I put a blanket over it. I put it way behind my bag and everything. And I closed the door and I sat down. And around 5:30 I thought, well, I could just look at the news. So I took the television set out, wired it up again, looked at the news, and suddenly it was 1 a.m, right? Three or 4 cans of beer later. Now, it's very hard to think of that as sadhana. However, in that cabin, besides the television set, and all the food that I had filled the refrigerator with, and the bed and the bathtub that I could take frequent baths in, and all the different ways I could play in my sensual delights, there was also my consciousness sitting in that cabin saying, far out. Imagine that, you know. You going to tell anybody about this one? I mean, sitting me with that guy that said, gee, I think if I take the broccoli and put some of that spaghetti sauce over it, and bake it, it'll be just like a pizza, and oh boy, and if I do that, you know, and then I can get that done quick so I can watch Kung Fu and, you know. That guy was doing his thing, and this other voice was saying, far out, or Maharaji was saying, teek, teek, it's the way it is, okay. Right. Okay. There was the voice in me that was sitting watching all this, just noticing it, witnessing it, watching with, at first, horror. See? Because when you meet Shiva in yourself, you are horrified. When you meet him anywhere, he's really scary. In the Shiva Stotram, it says, when Shiva dances, the beings in all three worlds tremble. In all three worlds tremble, because his dance is so violent. And when I'm sitting in there with the television set, you know, I get in this funny predicament. I get the food ready just as the program began. This particularly happened to me not long ago when the Watergate hearings started. See, Watergate, even more than my orality, is watching Watergate, okay? And I was sitting with the Watergate hearings just began, and I had the food, but I couldn't eat the food till I consecrated it. But I couldn't stop watching Watergate long enough to consecrate it. And if I didn't consecrate it quick, the food would get cold, okay? I mean, you can't look at television and go, Brahmavanam, Brahmavanam, Brahmavanam. I mean, it's, you know, it's just too shoddy, you know? Okay? I mean, you're faced with these real dilemmas, right, in doing sadhana. And I think you should recognize that this is where it really hurts, you know? This is where we live most of the time, you know, unfortunately. Well, then the next week I managed to, I would just unplug the set and put a cloth over it. I wouldn't put it in the closet. And I found I was getting a little bored, so I was only looking at television 3 or 4 hours a day. And then I got into feeding birds and studying bird names and things like that. By the third week, I was sitting a little quieter and deepening a little bit, and I could sit by the river for a few hours, and I was starting to eat more simpler food, and I was losing interest in television. And by the fourth week, I was really in pretty calm, centered space, and I was starting to feel that energy again. I was getting that place that you get when you've been here for 9 days. That connectedness, that, yeah, right, that's what it's about. Whew. Wow, whew. Boy, this is the real, yeah. You all know, I'm sure. Well, while I was in there, I looked at the whole scene and I thought, you know, really, if I'm going to do karma yoga, I really should just go into it, really just go into it. And I had a big folder of places that had invited me to speak. And I just kept them in a folder and wrote back saying, I don't do that kind of thing, but if I ever do, I'll let you know. Benefits and lectures and all kinds of stuff. So I said, okay. I got the inner message, because I live totally intuitively now. Because what we in the West call intuition, I would call the voice that's guiding me from within. And sometimes my intuition is a reflection of certain of my desires, and sometimes it's a reflection of a deeper voice. And I never know which one it is. And sometimes it tells me to do something, and I start to do it, and then it turns out it was just another ego trip, and it falls away. I see its impurity. And sometimes I start to do it, and it feels right on, go, 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 and I just stay right in this space as I'm doing it. Then I know, right, that's right on. It's all a hunt and peck process of learning to hear that inner voice, because you can't hang on the coattails of the guru every minute saying, Swamiji, what do I do now? Should I sharpen this pencil now? Should I sit? What shall I do now? You know. When I was coming to America, I said to Dada, Maharaji's devotee, I said, Dada, you're lucky. You hang around Maharaji. If you do something wrong, he's always telling him, do this, do that. He said, look at me, I'm, thousands of miles away. I can really go off the deep end, and I don't mind doing myself in karmically, but I don't really like doing other people in. That's a heavy, And I can do that because I have a lot of lust left and stuff, and I may manipulate the whole game just to make it with somebody. I don't trust me at all. See? And he went to Maharaji, and he told Maharaji this, and Maharaji sent back the message, Ramdas shouldn't worry. I wouldn't let him do anything wrong. Okay. Now, how does he not let you do anything wrong? Do you think suddenly a little angel comes fluttering in and says, stop, like in fairy tales? Or no, it's the guy sitting in that cabin in Tucson saying, more kung fu, okay. More beer, more baths, more, wow, yeah, right. It's that place in me that knows, and it's just letting me do what I need to do as I'm getting closer there, and it never lets me out of its sight. Okay. To let you in on the secret of the game from where I'm sitting perceptually, the universe that I live in has only two beings left in it. There is who I still think I am, who I think I am. Okay, that's the illusion. And there's, Sam. You can call Sam God, or you can call Sam Guru, or you can call Sam whatever you'd like. I call it Guru. And as far as I can understand it, my universe, the universe of the illusion of who I think I am, exists solely for the purpose of bringing me to it, to the Guru. That is, that everything that is happening to me, that has happened to me, or that could happen to me, is a teaching being given to me as grace to bring me to the Guru. Not just sitting in satsang, but tripping on the rock as you walk down the path. It's all of it, the teaching, if you can flip around and see it that way. Now, under those conditions, karma yoga takes on quite a different aspect. As I'll point out in the brief time that's left to me by my inner clock, so deciding to do this tour, I decided, all right, I'm really going to do it to myself. I mean, if you're going to do karma yoga, really do it. Don't just screw around, do it. So I took a big map and I laid out all these lecture dates in terms of schedule and geography, and I got to the point where I had scheduled myself to lecture in a different city every night for 2 months, and then in the third month I started to loosen up a little bit. So I was only doing, say, one every 3 nights. So I started, and I went up the coast of California and Washington, Seattle, and Portland, Olympia, Seattle. Everywhere I went, either Swamiji had just been or was about to be, it turned out. I'd get to a place and they'd say, you know who slept in this bed last night? But the difference between us is he doesn't do it as karma yoga, he's just doing it. Because he is it. He is the statement of the yoga. And I understood that's what karma yoga is about. Not to say I am serving, but to become the service. You become here's what happens. See, I started out, and every night, here's the routine. Every day, you get up, have your morning beverage, as it was said last night, which for me is coffee. Sometimes a bagel. Okay, then you go to the airport. You go through security, open your bags. You go and you get on an airplane and you sit in the airplane for so many hours. The plane lands, you get off the plane, you walk down the runway, gangplank, and you walk, whatever it is, and you walk into the hall, and there are these beings saying, oh, Ram Dass, and you say, how do you do? And they take you, you pick up your bag, they take you to where you're staying. You either do some press conferences or radio stuff or meet a group, and then at 3 o'clock I take a nap because I say to everybody I had hepatitis and I have to protect my liver, and I go to nap for a few hours, then I get finished. Then there is dinner, which is usually some kind of a satsang gathering, a very beautiful potluck thing somewhere, and we all get together. It's very lovely. Around 7:30, move to the lecture hall. I sit down, tune up the tambura or get the shruti box ready, whatever it is. Work with the musicians that have gathered to help me out. 8 o'clock I start. At 11 or 12 I stop. I am delivered back to the hotel or motel or room. I take my peanut butter and crackers and my milk, drink that, look at the late news, go to bed, get up the next morning, meditate for a few minutes, have my coffee, go to the airport, go through security, get on the plane, get off the plane, pick up my bag, say hello, namaste. Have you got the microphone? I prefer a mini boom because I have a beard, and when the lavalier is there, you can't hear through the beard. Oh, yes, I understand. I need a cushion because yes, of course. Take the rest, go have supper, go to the lecture. Next morning, get up, have your coffee, go to the airport, go through security. It's no different than working at a lathe, see? You know, every day you get up and you lecture. Now, what happens is, I saw that the only way to survive, I started to get sicker and sicker and sicker, first of all, because the schedule was grueling. And by the time I got to Vancouver, I didn't have any voice, which was funny. I mean, I was about to head for Anchorage, Alaska, and I didn't have any voice left to speak. And I was sitting over a hot vaporizer and, doing the whole thing, mantra and everything, saying to Maharaji, what do you have in mind now? I mean, that's pretty far out. How am I going to speak without a voice? And he had said to me in India, he says, there's going to come a time when you're not going to want to lecture anymore. See? And I kept repeating that to myself, and I kept saying, this must be the time, but I still wanted to do it. Because quite honestly, what I'm working with is power and fame and all these worldly things that are connected with exactly when Swamiji said, who doesn't know Ram Dass? Of course, everybody applauds. And what am I supposed to go through then? Like it's... Like if 40 people come to see me at a day in the farm in New Hampshire, I get stoned out of my head from the satsang, and I walk in and my father says to me, had a pretty good crowd today. See? Like he's counting cars, see? I mean, that's a cultural background that I come out of, And I've got to work with that all the time. That's my work. You got to understand what karma yoga really is. It's working with your desires right in the middle of the fire, right in the field. It's dying into the thing. It's dying into the service. So that I realized that the only reason I was getting fatigued and wiped out and physically run down was because I still wanted something. Like after a beautiful satsang, I'd be just hardly in my body. I'd just be sort of floating around, and we'd all be staying. Nobody wanted to go home, that place where nobody wants to leave. Somebody would come up and say, I have a beautiful place just a few miles out of town. and there'll be about 10 of us, and we'll cook a beautiful thing. Why don't you come on back now? It's around 12 o'clock at night. Now, I know if I go back, that's at least till 4 in the morning. Next morning, there's the airplane, the security, the coffee. That's not going to change, see? So I realized that as long as I desired to go, and I'd say to them, oh, I wish I could go, but I can't. And I remembered, oh, that's what I hated about time. Time kept making me turn off life. And then I thought, no, time is merely making me turn off my desires. All I have to do is just desire to become the pure instrument of service, that's all. I'm going to become like one of those 747 planes. Not like the pilot, but like the plane. Somebody gets in the plane and moves it from here to here. It doesn't say, oh boy, I'm flying to New York. Or I bet I'll be big in Denver. You know? It's just an airplane. You move it from here to there and it does its thing. It goes, and it just flies. Okay? And I recognized that for me to understand the exquisiteness of karma yoga was going to mean that I could do this every single day until there was nobody doing it at all. It was just being done every day. So every day there was just the moving, the flying, and it was all sadhana. There wasn't one tiny bit of it. You come up to the security guard and the guard sees you as a potential bomber, you know? That's Maharaji, that's my guru, who's just taken through central casting, gone to the costume department, and he's come out as the guard, and he's saying to you, well, see if you can see through me this time. See? Do you know I'm God in here, or do you think I'm a security guard? Are you so paranoid that you're busy reacting, saying, I'm not the bomber, I'm not the bomber? I'm a nice guy. And everybody I meet every day is the guru in drag, as far as I'm concerned. Okay? And the sickness and the fatigue and all of it is the grace. It's all the grace. It's all the grace. It's all the grace. There is nothing left in my life other than teachings that are going to bring me to God. It's the only game in town. Nothing else has any meaning. What else am I going to make meaningful? Just as I make it meaningful, like I'm busy watching the Watergate. I can't wait for Dean to get on the stand, you know. And at the same moment, I'm sitting inside saying, you can't wait for Dean to get on the stand. Because let me tell you that once that thing has happened enough to bring you into this room, as far as I'm concerned, it's all over. Now it's the mopping up operation, which may take many lifetimes. It's all purification from here on out. It's just cleaning up. It's getting your body together, getting your heart open, getting your mind calmed down. And understanding that a conscious being recognizes that she or he has taken birth, and the function of an incarnation is to end suffering. And that means wherever it exists, on any plane it exists at. And you recognize that the optimum thing you to do to end suffering is to work on yourself, and how you work on yourself depends on your Dharma. What is your route through? And for me, my work on myself is through doing what I'm doing this minute. If I think I'm doing this, I've still got a way to go. Until this is just being done, and I'm just as much part of the audience as you are. Am I attached to being the speaker? Am I looking for the rush of your appreciation? Now, the honoring of Shiva, it's now 5 minutes past. I will allow us 5 more minutes. The honoring of Shiva, it's easy when you talk about Shiva, you know, over there in India, with his ashes and his, you know, all his buddies he hangs out with that are so scary, you know, and his wife, oh my God, Kali, wow, wow, jeez, far out. That's easy. Okay. Then you can bring it over here and you say, well, look at pollution and look at lying and stealing in government, and look at murder and paranoia and rape, and oh boy, that's Shiva. But get a little closer still when you're ready, and realize that in you are all those forces as well. The Bhagavad Gita is talking about an inner battle, an inner battle. The battle between that voice that says kung fu and broccoli with some sauce on it, and the guy that says, I want to watch kung fu and I want to have the broccoli. That's the battle, those two guys. And that goes on and on and on and on, and everything you do, you know, when people come to me and they say, should I do this or do that? And I know that as a good yogi, I'm supposed to say good yogic things like, do this, or stand on your head, or something like that. But I must honestly admit, what I mainly say to people, it doesn't matter. Because whatever you do, you'll do as consciously or as unconsciously as you are. Do it all to bring yourself to God. Don't get caught in the form you're going to do it in. Just do it. And as you come closer to God, you find out, in fact, there are only certain things you can do, because you can't do things which increase illusion. You can't do things which increase suffering. You just can't do them because they're just too absurd. It's like taking needles and sticking them in your hands. Why are you going to do them? If I screw you, I'm just screwing myself. Who am I hurting? It's only us. That's where I'm sitting. I've got this little economic story that's fun. It's just a little fun image to play with. I've talked about before, my father heard that we were putting out some records very cheaply, and we were trying to lower prices of things and doing everything very economically, and that I was not trying to collect and amass money. And he says, what's the matter? Are you against capitalism? This is the ex-president of a railroad, right? So I said, no, Dad, I'm not against capitalism. For you, I think it's great. It's just not my style. He says, I don't understand you. I said, well, that I understand. It's interesting, we love each other incredibly, even though we're on different trips, because compassion doesn't mean you lay your trip on anybody else. It means you become it so perfectly that you become the light that draws. You don't go out and say, come on, Dad, wake up. See? But I said, I'll try to share with you, since you don't understand, I'll try to explain. I said, didn't you just try a case for Uncle Henry? He's a lawyer. He says, yeah. I said, you win it? He says, damn right I didn't. It was a tough case. I said, boy, you worked a lot on it. He says, I sure did. I said, I bet you charged him a big fee. He says, of course not. It's my brother-in-law. I said, well, that's my predicament. See? Everybody's my brother-in-law. Like, who am I going to rip off? Okay? And he could hear that. See, he could hear that. Out of a Jewish middle-class background, he could hear. Family you do one thing with, and them you do something else with, see? Okay? And if he's Meshuggah enough, so the whole thing is his family, that's, you know, he's a good kid anyway, you know. So. In conclusion, when you leave this place and this blessing, this mitzvah, when you leave this, I can assure you that you will come down. And I can further tell you, although you may forget it, that that is as much of the teaching as this is. And the down and up is all part of the dance. And the game is not to get high, but the game is to be. And be includes highs and lows until you're no more attached to your high than you are to your low. There's bliss, there's depression. Right? There it all is. There's the whole panorama of Maya. All the positive states and negative states. It's all more stuff. Divine stuff, the Leela. And in it all, here we are. Here we are. And the meaning of honoring Shiva is to give space to all these forces, to recognize them, to allow their being, to not try to shove them under the rug. There is a terrible habit we have of getting holy too fast. Intellectually, we know where holy is, and we figure out, well, I want to be like Swamiji, so I'll put on those clothes and I'll act like that. And you do it from outside in. You can't do this game from outside in. You can play at it, but you're going to keep, that inner voice is going to keep being horrified by your hypocrisy. And then you say, well, I'm really nowhere. And the statement, I'm really nowhere, is the recognition of being somewhere. That is it. See, people come to me and say, I'm no good, I'm depressed, or I hate everybody. And I said to them, well, if you hated everybody, you wouldn't tell me you hate everybody. You know? It's that story I've told about. I am now 2 minutes over because I have lack of self-control. It's nearly over. It's okay. I've nearly run out. Some years back at Millbrook, a girl called in the middle of the night, and she had taken some mysterious chemical and in Los Angeles, and she was freaked. And she called up, and she got me in the line, and she said, I've gone crazy. And I'm going to kill myself, and I'm insane. And she laughed hysterically, and she did it. She showed me she was insane. And I said to her, well, who dialed the phone? You know, the 4 digits and the 3 digits and the 3 digits and the 1 digit, and gave the number and the whole thing. She said, I did. I said, well, would you put her on the phone, because you're crazy. So let me say that once you have tasted, once you've touched, once the connection's been made, once we have acknowledged each other's existence, once we know we're here, you can't get away. You can't get away. You may go under really deep and feel, I've lost it. And then you'll see yourself standing there, I've lost it. And you'll break up. Oh, have I lost it? Oh, am I depressed? You know. You get bored. Oh, I'm bored. Oh, I'm so bored. Oh, I'm bored. See, and then you let yourself be bored. Oh, I'm still bored. Still bored. I'll try to meditate. Now I'm bored with that. You know, I'm bored. I'm bored. Oh, I'm so bored. Oh, and everything's boring. Nothing's, yuck. See? And then you become totally bored, and if you become bored, then it's done. Right? See, the game is, if you're so afraid of all the Shiva forces, you keep pushing them away, they keep clinging. It's very interesting to use the golden chain to pull yourself out of the mud, what's called the Satwig chain, of being good and pure and doing good and pure things. It's good to help you get out of a lot of other stuff. But remember, you're holding on to a chain, and that chain can bind too. And to get caught in good and evil, while you're using good and evil as a method, just remember that behind good and evil we are. Behind good and evil we are. Shiva and Ram are two more faces of that which is indescribable and unknowable and unseeable, but only beable. It's really very, very good to be with all of us, and I guess this afternoon, after a few more rounds of the drama, we will sing together. Namaste.